Thank you for pressing start on episode 97 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today, we have 2 secret games, our special guest, Flora Merigold, and a review of our featured game, Flower. Here on Underplayed, we review indie games of all kinds, the games with small budgets, but big hearts, the lesser-known experiences with imaginative ideas. I'm Bo Po, and I have a co-host. What's better than that? He's shaking his cake in Human Fall Flat, powering his radio with the turn of a crank, and playing through games till the backlog is blank. It's the 1,000 times resistant, Google form insistent, funky member of the Bomb Rush crew, DiscoCola. How do you do?
My senses are working overtime. I'm trying to teach the difference between a turn and a tilt. It's harder than you think, but the secret stuff still chimes. How are you?
Were those song lyrics?
They are references to XTC's Senses Working Overtime, but adapted to be about teaching my kid how to play Flower.
I thought they sounded familiar. I'm doing just fine. My street light in the middle of nowhere. Those are references to our featured game, Flower. Which is a game that released back in the year 2009.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Long time ago. When was the first time you played Flower?
It couldn't have been much longer after that.
Okay. Early on.
Yeah, I wasn't like watching the release date or anything, just like waiting for it. But 2009, 2010 is like the time that I played all those PS3 indies. Because like shortly after that, I was just like busy all the time, met my person that would become my wife, so I've been busy basically since I was like 14 years old.
Wow.
But made some time for it.
Full-time busy except to play Flower.
Yeah.
Is your life story. But today for the featured game Flower, we have a guest. It will be Flora Merigold of Epilogue Gaming and Left Behind Game Club podcasts. If you've been paying attention to our announcements and our season, Flora has not always been on the docket for this season. And through a series of chance encounters and interactions online, we actually got the perfect guest to join us for our review of Flower later. And we're going to talk to Flora about all of her gaming interests and projects. It'll be a great time. Then also, speaking of guests, next episode, we're going to have a special guest, Jacob Price of the Pre-Order Bonus podcast and writer for So Many Games, will help us review Journey. And here's the kicker, folks. This will be really exciting. I know a lot of you have heard of Journey. A lot of you have played Journey. Journey this, Journey that. Game of the Year awards for 10 plus years in a row, right? But what's very interesting is Jacob Price hasn't played Journey before. So it'll be a very unique perspective coming onto the show to help us review that game. And it will be the last normal episode of the first 100 episodes of Underplayed, because the episode after that, we will be doing our season finale.
Yes, the final featured game in the omnibus here at Underplayed. Speaking of episode 100, I mentioned this in the last proper episode, I think, but I didn't do the math correctly. This is technically our 100th episode uploaded to a platform.
Yes,
but it is not episode 100.
Because we did 2 PAX East bonus episodes, which would take us to 99. What was the 100th? What was the other weird one?
When we had the No Small Games takeover.
The April Fools. Yep. I forgot that wasn't a normal episode number. That was a bonus too.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we're at 100 now. But we will celebrate 100 in just a month or two with a lot of reflection on the first omnibus of Underplayed. I have a couple things I want to talk about up top. One of them is a surprise.
Okay.
So the first thing is, Disco, we did it again. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes.
I
didn't even see this one coming. Like, total shocker.
No one did. There was no rumor. There was no suspicion about this happening.
I don't necessarily think there was even a need, personally. But
Damn. Well, what we're referring to is often on this show, we feature games that get updates or sequels
which is why I didn't think there was a need, because this one still gets... Anyways, all that aside, they're still updating it. All that aside.
And what tends to happen, listener, is we will record an episode about these games, and the very next day, or maybe within the next week, the announcement of the content update, expansion, or sequel will be announced after we are done recording, which outdates our episode a little bit.
Immediately.
So the announcement that was recently made is the follow-up to Don't Starve Together, Don't Starve Elsewhere was announced in the Triple I Showcase the day after we recorded the Don't Starve Together episode. The day after.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice if we would have had like a hint about it, because then it would have been like, oh, we're releasing to coincide with this, announcement. But nope, that's just not, we didn't plan it.
No.
My favorite one to date is Another Crab's Treasure, because like shortly after we did that episode, it wasn't like a massive update, but it gave us things that like specifically I asked for in the game, as I recall.
I know. That was eerie.
Yeah.
That was really eerie. It happened with that game. It happened with Katana Zero.
Oh, yeah.
It happened with Cult of the Lamb.
Yep.
It happened with Toem. It happened with, I think, 2 other games that I'm not remembering.
Couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Basically, if we make an episode that features a game, it is an omen of more to come.
Unless we ask for it. Then
unless we ask for it,
it's
never going to happen. So don't ever ask for something you love. Okay, the other thing that I want to do up top is a little special surprise for you. Now, you know that I went to PAX East earlier in April/late March, and I brought back a little something.
Okay. Is it beef jerky? I could use some beef jerky.
You cannot eat this.
Oh, I bet I can.
Well, you can eat it. I wouldn't advise it.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you this. The bottom is already opened, which the bottom is the top.
Okay. You're handing it to me upside down now. I get it. I am seeing a packet with the Color Grave logo on it. And I'm guessing that these are the Color Grave cards that you mentioned.
Yes.
In the previous episode.
That was the pack of cards assembled that I discussed during the PAX East bonus episode.
And it's the full set.
It's the full set. So those are characters from Color Grave's Gameography. And also in that pack is a little pin of one of the characters. Well.
For those of you that are unfamiliar or haven't kept up, Color Grave designed the game Curse Crackers for Whom the Bell Toils, which is a game I previously reviewed on Underplayed and really loved and recommended to Bo, and he played it. And I just really love Color Grave's art style in their games because they have an unmatched mastery of this Game Boy Color design that I think most games on the Game Boy Color don't even live up to. So thank you for this. So this is the full set, which means that you convinced Jacob to ultimately part with the ones that you guys used to complete the set.
Yes, he was totally okay with it. He actually left our meeting spot totally at peace with that. He goes, you complete the set, you do what needs to be done. And I still haven't heard from Color Grave on whether we get a game key. I also learned that the game key was for a random game in their Gameography.
Oh.
It wasn't necessarily for Cursed Chapter Dawn Thief, which is their upcoming game. But Color Grave's games include Prodigal, Curse Crackers for Whom the Bell Toils, which Disco just mentioned, Veritas, April Grove, and Claire a la Mode. So you could get one of those games if you completed the set, and Cursed Chapter Dawn Thief is their upcoming game.
Well, this is really awesome. I reluctantly love collecting full card sets, and I love that two of them have pre-whitened corners on them.
I wasn't sure if that's because Jacob didn't handle them with care before he gave them to me. It could be that he had them loose in his backpack. But does it look...
Well, now that you say it, I don't know for sure.
Yeah. But because all the cards I got were pristine.
Okay.
So sorry, Jacob, we're calling you out a little bit. He'll be
it
fine.
would be interesting for them to be whitened that quickly, but what do I know?
I don't know. Maybe there was something there.
Anymore, all I collect are Digimon cards, and they are thick. Like if you've ever like held a Digimon card, they are like really thick cards. Anyways, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do anything like that, but I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You could do whatever you want with them. Come up with a trading card game rules for them.
For all seven.
For all seven.
All seven cards.
You could frame them. You could just stick them in a drawer and look at them sometimes.
I'm going to put them in a binder.
Oh, wonderful. Lovely. Anyway, that was all I had at the top.
Well, thank you. I don't have much. Sometimes I like to update you on when my kids play new games. In addition to Flower, which we'll talk about later, my kids have been playing for a little while Goat Simulator.
Really?
Yes. I turned it on with that purpose. I was like, I don't want to play Abzu, and I don't want to, turn on... I don't even remember what they asked for, but I was like, let's try Goat Simulator. I need to go journal for a minute. You play with a goat. And
love it.
My youngest loves it. So
nice. That's on our list of games to feature someday. So we might be talking about it next season or sometime soon thereafter.
I forgot how hard the theme song to Goat Simulator slaps. Like I used to play it on Press Start to Listen all the time.
I've never heard it.
I forgot all about it. It's such a good song.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted. Well, we have a lot to get to, but before we move on, there are a few easy ways to support Underplayed. They cost nothing. They take almost no time at all. We'd really appreciate you doing these things for us. If you haven't already, one, go ahead and give us a follow and a 5-star rating on the podcast platform you're listening to us on. That makes us appear more consistently for you and for others. Another thing you can do is follow us across social media using the links in our show notes. And another thing, sharing our podcast by reposting what we post on social media and telling your indie game loving friends about us means a whole lot. And as always, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. It is time for our secret games.
The secret games. Secret games that you'll play. Yes. The secret games. The secret games.
In Secret Games, we're each going to reveal a game we've been playing recently and then review it. We just have to pick an indie game we haven't talked about on the show before, and I don't know what DiscoCola picked for this episode. He doesn't know what I picked for this episode. We'll start with you, Disco. Let the mystery be no more. Reveal your secret game for episode 97 of Underplayed.
Originally, I had this game planned for the Journey episode and a different game planned for Flower. I purchased the game that I planned to play for Flower and decided it was better for Journey, so I swapped them, and it still fits. My secret game is a 3D platformer from Magic Rain Studios, and it is called ILA, A Frosty Glide.
I love this game.
Perfect.
I love this game. This game is so fun.
This is the game I was worried about.
Yeah, totally.
All season long.
I thought about picking it for some slot of this season.
I was very confident you were going to do that.
I ended up having a lot of options. This was one I thought about. I didn't go with it.
So, from Steam, set foot on a magical island and explore a whimsical, small open world as Isla, a spirited young witch in training searching for her lost kitty Coco. With your trusty skate broom, find secret places, collectibles, and improve your magic and flying abilities as you reach the summit. So the story is, as the Steam description says, you are searching for your lost cat Coco. Along the way, you'll learn more about the mystical snowy island. This is a third-person 3D game where you can jump and you can glide on your broom. And as you progress, you can access newer mobility upgrades, including a small air dash and more consecutive jumps. So if you've played a short hike, think very much in terms of collecting more feathers. You also have access to a ground pound that will open up chests and press buttons, and just generally interact with anything glowy that lays flat on or under the ground. There will be various collectibles lying around, including coins, outfit pieces, trendy glasses, and journal entries of various kinds. Some of these will just be laying out and about. Others will be in treasure chests. And certain outfits can also be purchased at various vendors throughout the world. And as you find and collect mobility upgrades, you will solve increasingly complicated platform puzzles, all the while learning more about the lore of the island, as well as learn a bit more about yourself.
Yes. And I, just for context, I did play this, I don't know how long ago it was, within the past, I want to say 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Is that right? I thought it was a little bit longer ago than that.
Well, I remember I played it during the Scoop Olympics, which I mentioned briefly at the top of one episode. And that was just back in February and March.
I guess that wasn't that long ago,
so,
was it?
Yeah, it feels both far away and also not far away.
It's been a long couple months. It's been a long week.
Yes. A long day.
Yeah.
A long episode already.
Anyways, would you add anything to that? Because the story isn't wholly front and center at all times, I would say.
No, you just get the sense that you're supposed to keep climbing and exploring and finding new places to go. It becomes very clear that you're getting new abilities and just more traversal.
Yeah.
Not always like new kinds of traversal, but just like the ability to keep flying on your broom longer sometimes.
Yes, reaching more and more spots that were out of reach a few minutes ago. So yeah, that's what I would say as far as gameplay go. It's just like a pretty old-fashioned 3D platformer. It's just good stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's stylized in that low poly but high pixelation textures.
Yeah, it's like voxel style.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to like compare it to Minecraft even, because it's very, very low poly. It's not like Abyss X0. It's very like your arms are rectangles.
Yes. If you want to relate it to an indie game, you could say it's like Bonfire Peaks, maybe, if you want to keep it indie on the show.
So yeah, that's what I would say about it. So just moving on, stuff I really like about ILA, A Frosty Glide. Generally, I think the platforming feels really good. I think the jump height feels good. The walking speed feels fine. Just like jumping and floating down slowly feels good. And even your like ground pound has a nice little extra bounce to it once you hit the ground. And that look and feels really good compared to the like sound effects that you get at the same time. Moving on from there, music and sound effects are all really solid. I don't have any complaints. Next, I like how frequently I'm running into collectibles in general. There are lots of coins all over the place, but you're also not going too long in between treasure chests. And these treasure chests can have just a couple of coins in them. They can have an outfit piece in them. They can have a journal in them. And so you never really know what you're going to find. No treasure chest clearly indicates what's inside. Like sometimes you'll get to the top of a couple platform challenge and you'll get just a couple of coins, and maybe you'll be walking along the path and you'll get an outfit piece. You never really know what's inside, and so it keeps giving you things pretty frequently, and so that's keeping me invested. It's activating the brain juice.
Yes, you're always almost within arm's reach of something to pick up or something to read, which I really appreciated because you are a very tiny person in a pretty large world.
Yeah.
Like this game actually surprised me with how large it is.
The map is not like insignificant compared to your character size. Yeah. I love the look of the game. Like I said, it's that low poly style similar to Bonfire Peaks. And I'm just, I'm into the like high pixelation textures. I love that. Because I still get to play a 3D game, but I get to look at some pixel art at the same time.
Yeah, and I think the pixel art adds a coziness.
Yeah.
A certain brand of coziness. Because there are lots of ways for coziness to be conveyed aesthetically. There's something about this that feels like gentle, like there aren't as many complex shapes. And so it like really lets you focus on all the detail in the world in a new way.
Yeah. I like the scope of the game. I can see this being one of those games that I turn on to complete in an afternoon every so often. It's even shorter than like Spyro games, but has almost as many collectibles, and that's really satisfying. So I can see this being something I return to because I just love having those games that I can pick up and get from start to finish, and maybe even 100% in just a few hours. But also it feels like a task because I'm going out and collecting and, doing all these cool like gliding jumps and stuff. So it's not just like a simple nothing burger.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still challenge to it.
Definitely.
There's a segment of this game where I am basically doing trials of 3 different witches. And I think this segment of the game and its branching paths and the way that it's all set up is really well designed. Like I can kind of go any of the 3 which ways I want, but there's like a flow to it. And if you get to the end of one, you're finding your way back to the beginning of the branching path pretty easily and flawlessly. And that's just really good design. And I love that there's like 3 different identities of challenge to go after. And it's such a satisfying way to collect different pieces to ultimately solve like the one big door puzzle or whatever. And I really love that part of the game. As far as dislikes, there are some like high speed racing bits. Like generally they're pretty fun and they're a nice change of pace. And to the game's credit, like the hitbox for picking up items is pretty large and forgiving. But when you're going at this speed during these sections and you're trying to collect every single coin, they're pretty easy to miss and they can be a pain to reset back to the beginning to get all those coins. That you might be akin to parts of Flower, which we can talk about a little bit later.
I remember one of those challenges near one of those big statues that you were talking about. One of the 3 like challenges involves a race like that. It's kind of like a snowboarding game for a second. And I did that loop at least 3 times to get all the coins because I just kept missing one. I'd go through again and get like 5 more coins, but I'm still missing like 7. And so I go through again and again until I get them all.
I managed to accidentally like trick the game into not forcing me into that high speed. Like I like clipped out of the activation trigger for that. So I was just like walking at normal speed. So I was able to do that one pretty easily. But when I got to the other one and was stuck in high speed, it took me a few times. The camera gets confused sometimes in tight spaces or in those races. So it can kind of lose track of ILA.
Yeah, and there are times where you're in the thick of like trees and buildings. I found that a lot in like the village, and there's a place that's lower in elevation, I'll just say.
Yep.
And I remember the camera just like showing me a bunch of nothingness because there was suddenly a tree there.
Yeah.
I had that happen.
I did have that a couple times, yeah. While I tend to like that cosmetic upgrades are just that, cosmetic, and they don't outshine other collectibles, I do kind of wish that some of them had a bit more, like maybe the ones that are associated with these special witches that represent the different trials. Maybe if they had like some sort of extra particle effect or something, because it kind of seems like each one has their own like element, and maybe the outfit that's associated with that witch has a particle effect that represents that element or something. But ultimately, I do appreciate that there isn't like one best cloak and one best hat or whatever.
It's purely for customization.
Yes. Lastly, we see a lot of bits of things frozen under ice, and there's a good amount of the game where we can't clear this ice. And so I'm spending a lot of time thinking I must have missed something, but that's not the case. And so I guess my complaint is that there's too much time before we actually gain the access to the ability to clear this ice.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my complaint about it. It's just like I spent too much of the game afraid that I just don't know what I'm doing.
That's valid. Yeah. I remember that happening a lot later than I expected too.
Yeah. But all in all, this is an attractive short sit of a game with a surprisingly well-designed world layout. The more you play and progress, the better it feels to play. I only have small complaints here and there. Otherwise, the amount of collectibles, challenges, and story beats all scale very well with the overall size of the game. And I can see myself picking this up once every year or two just for a quick completion experience. So I give this one a very solid 8.5 out of 10.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think this is just a very pleasant game. And after the game is done, I do feel drawn to collectibles. I have a memory that it's actually kind of hard to track the collectibles, though, that you might have to use a guide, or there isn't a lot of in-game assistance for that, or am I wrong?
There are certain collectibles you can like go to the pause menu and it says blank out of total number. So the trendy glasses, the pages, and the very specific journal entries for some other witch in the past, all of those have a blank out of total. But as far as like if there's a set number of coins in the world, you don't know. And I don't necessarily think there's a way to track how many of your cosmetic upgrades you're still missing.
Okay.
So I don't even know what I'm missing if I'm missing it.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I have to say, I think this game ends on a literal very high note, but it's also just a high note emotionally. Like I really love how this game ends. It's a very triumphant end, I'll just say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I have maybe not the same exact feeling as I had playing a game like A Short Hike, but it ends with a scene like A Short Hike that I remember just vividly. And I love where it takes us.
Yeah. And I love the journey to get there too. It feels really nice, especially toward the end. And as our broom begins to glide even further, it just feels that much better to play.
Absolutely. Sweet. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I don't have any questions about it because
you've played it.
I've played it. And I'm glad you got to check it out too, because I played this and I was like, this is a DiscoCola game. I was thinking of tons of people to recommend it to, and you were one of them.
I'm really excited to finish it and get all the collectibles. You can play ILA, A Frosty Glide on PC, Switch, Xbox Series X and S, and PlayStation 5. And I want to send a big thank you out to Gator Blossom. She sent me a copy of this game.
That is so nice. I love that.
And I believe I saw that there's a physical copy coming soon.
Ooh.
But I don't recall.
All right. It is time for my secret game. My secret game is also an adventure game. It released in 2024, and it is called Copycat.
Home is not certain, nor a guarantee, right, or entitlement. Home can be destroyed at any moment, and new roots must be laid. Home is not about things, places, or people. It's not about where you sleep, or used to sleep. It's none of that. Home is the place where you are needed most.
Oh, right. This is the one I mentioned in the last episode that I thought you were going to pick.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, it looks like we're in for a bit of a dark experience, maybe.
Yeah. So this game is a lot of things. But one thing I can tell you up top is it is an adventure game from 2024. It was developed by Spoonful of Wonder, an Australian team. I think it's a team of just two. It was published by Neverland Entertainment, Critical Leap, and Spoonful of Wonder. The game synopsis from Steam says, quote, a poignant narrative-driven game about rejection, belonging, and the meaning of home. It follows the story of a newly adopted shelter cat whose space in the home is taken by a copycat. Bring the tissues, end quote. So I want to thank Pirate PR for providing a key to this game. This is a game that I played the demo for during a Steam Next Fest a while back, and it basically just throws you into the first act of the game right at the beginning. And I got maybe about 20 minutes in and I called it. I was like, this is interesting. I'll put this on my wish lists. And so now I've gotten the chance to play the full game. And in this game, it opens with the text, home is not where you live, but where you are needed most. And then we take on the perspective of an elderly woman named Olive, who is adopting an adult cat from a shelter. You're in the first-person perspective during this intro part, and you experience these brief flashes of light and disorientation. You later find out that Olive is dealing with emphysema, and you can select one of 6 different cats for Olive to adopt. So you've got like an orange cat, you've got some multicolored cats, you've got a black cat like my cat Flynn. So I went with the black cat. And whatever cat you adopt, Olive calls Dawn. After which you control Dawn in the third person instead of Olive. So for the rest of the game, you are controlling the cat.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to Olive's home. You settle into this new normal. Olive just lives by herself. It's just you, the cat, and Olive. And Olive's house has 2 floors with an entryway, a living room, a kitchen, an art room, a garage, and then an upstairs bedroom and bathroom that you can explore. You end up getting into this routine of playing with toys. Olive puts on the nature documentaries on the TV, so you listen to those, and sometimes you get immersed in like your lineage, if you will. You swipe food left around the house and you bring it back to your bowl to eat. And as you play, you will often see your thoughts as text in the world. There are moments where Olive talks to you, and you will have responses to that in the form of thoughts that just show up as text. So you're not actually talking, but you get to kind of see what the cat is thinking. So the cat will say like, call me any name you want, lady. I'm not going to remember it. You know, things like that. They kind of just put you in the mindset of this cat. You get to run around the backyard to play outside, and the days slowly pass, and Olive eventually gets a phone call from her daughter, May, who has been trying to get her to live in a retirement home. And May is very much aware of Olive's health issues that she's been dealing with. And eventually her condition worsens. And through a series of events and misunderstandings, Dawn gets left outside while another cat goes inside the house and takes her place. So then, as Dawn, your objective is to survive and find a way back inside.
I saw that episode of Black Mirror.
It quickly gets dark, and I just want to give the content warning that's available on the Steam page for this game. So on Steam, it says content warning. Copycat touches on sensitive topics such as family trauma, abandonment, suicidal ideation, and other emotional complexities. If you are going through difficult times, remember that you are not alone. Seek support from friends, family, or a professional. Take care of yourself and play at your own pace. I will not personally be going into strong examples of these themes when I talk about the game from here, but I do want people to know about these things if they decide to check out Copycat. You should know about these things. So I'll get into what I liked about Copycat. What I liked, this game loves exploring the psyche of cats, as you could probably tell from like the words on screen and stuff, and like all the moments of interactivity are given here. The nature documentaries are a really fun play on the idea of like a cat being in a home space, because you are controlling the cat and you hear the nature documentary like narrator talking about like a panther on the documentary stalking its prey. And at the same time, you're trying to knock down a plate of steak from the table. You know, it's like you're hunting. So things often compare really well to like what's going on in the cat's mind. There are times where Olive is playing with you with a cat's toy and your vision evolves and like it's suddenly you're trying to catch a fish out of the water next to a riverbank. It's almost like the cannery scene from What Remains of Edith Finch, how eventually that scene dissolves away and you're like daydreaming. The cat's daydreaming all the time, and sometimes literally dreaming. You fall asleep and you're in another world where you're a fully grown panther.
I saw one of those. Yeah,
you saw an example of that when I had a chance to stream part of the game. And the game takes its time to get into this routine, this period of warming up to a new home. That's a really specific idea that I haven't seen happen in a lot of games. And it has these moments that are really heartfelt. There is Olive struggling with her health, which Dawn definitely perceives, but doesn't really understand. And so you have this situation of two very different beings living in a home who need each other for very different reasons. And, Olive needing Dawn for the companionship, and to not feel alone, and Dawn needing Olive to also not be alone, but also to be fed and just to have the necessities. And those ideas are communicated really beautifully in the opening acts of this game. I think this game opens very strongly. The first hour and a half of this game, I think, is really compelling. And it's what made me enthusiastic to wishlist the game when I first played the demo. I think this game is also a really great length. It is finishable in just a few hours. You could finish it in one sitting. I do get to some dislikes at this point. And I'll just say that as you get out and about in the world, when the conflict really starts happening, you are on the outside of this house. I won't say exactly what happens or like how this situation comes about. For me, this game just kind of jumps a shark. It goes to places very suddenly in a way that I don't think it earns. Olive and her daughter May and just about every person you come across in your adventure become unbelievable and or vile in a way that I honestly can't believe any choice any person makes in this game after a certain point of the story. I think the humans in this game make decisions that cause these tonal shifts that feel kind of ham-fisted. I also found that some gameplay sections feel a bit clunky. You get into some, I don't want to say what happens. You get into some situations where you need to react quickly. I'll just say that. Okay. And you do a lot of button presses. Sometimes you're doing these chase sections where you're running through alleys, avoiding obstacles. And at certain points, it felt kind of like a collection of mini games for the sake of having just like interactivity, because we need something new to do here. So let's have this little like gameplay section where you're dodging boxes and trash cans and things in an alleyway. So Copycat, I think, is a really impressively made game. Its narrative choices befuddle me a bit. It'll be down to earth for the first acts and very heartfelt, and a game I'm really into. And then before you know it, it's kind of turning it up to 10 with how insufferable people can be, with how aggressive people can be. I got whiplash from this game a bit. I think it understands cats much more than it understands humans, which leads to a story that feels a bit exploitative. And I still really like what this game sets out to do, that we get to control a cat through so many gameplay ideas. I think it's got a noble idea at the center of it. I think once it starts exploring conflict, I just stop believing in what it's doing. For me, I'm going to give this a 5.5 out of 10.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah. And it's playable on PC, which is the version I played, Mac, Switch, PS5, and Xbox Series.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit like I knew that it was going places from what I saw. And from what I saw, and this is mostly just the mother and the daughter, nothing seemed too unbelievable to me.
Okay.
Because I know that there are plenty of people that don't like cats, and plenty of people that don't like cats really don't like cats. And so I wonder if I would react the same way, given what I know about some people and how they feel about cats.
There's that. Then you just run into example after example of that same kind of thing happening and happening and happening. I just don't think that would happen that many times.
Yeah.
Is kind of where I'm coming from.
That's kind of what I assumed you meant. But,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Because like all the people that I'm thinking of are all concentrated in one area. So potentially it could happen. If I'm thinking of it the same way. So
yeah, and this is an Australian team putting this game together. This is set in an Australian place, so maybe the sentiment there is kind of this, which is a view and a perspective I'm not used to, and so I'm looking at this through my lens,
right?
So it could be very different elsewhere in the world, but also there are just moments that come out of nowhere, and I don't know what the purpose is for some things. And I think this game has some very heavy moments that don't necessarily need to be in there to get the experience that this game needs to be. I think this game maybe like leans on some, like in the content warning, you heard about some topics.
Right.
There's some topics explored that I wouldn't even say are explored. They're just kind of like dropped in there. And then I don't see the reason for those being in the game. And so then it feels like the game is not reckoning with these large ideas that I think it might have a responsibility to somehow like see through if it's going to bring up, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, one of the things that you said that surprised me, because the first thing I heard was the content warning. And one of the things mentioned in it was suicidal ideation. But then when you say that Olive is suffering from emphysema, that took me by surprise, because I was expecting that some of the conflict was not about an illness and more about suicide attempts.
It did feel like it was touching on a lot of heavy things that felt a little heavy-handed for what the game was exploring at the heart. I think it was maybe trying to justify decisions characters make later. I just still struggled to connect with it. And there are still moments that jump out of nowhere that are smaller. Like when you're exploring the neighborhood, you'll be on a rooftop and there will be an open window, and there is a married couple. You don't know who they are in the context of this story. They're just neighbors. They're having a very ugly, like marital fight argument. And you are allowed to witness this. But then those characters don't come into the story. I don't know what the purpose of it is. There's a lot of things like that in this game, but I don't know why they're in there.
It's like an excuse to include
ugliness.
That, yeah.
It's like this game wants to have ugliness in it for the sake of it, almost. I don't really get it. So those are my messy thoughts on Copycat. I'm still kind of thinking through what I experienced and meditating a bit, but I feel pretty good about, where I land score-wise for it.
Excellent.
So yeah, I know also a lot of people have enjoyed this. It has a at least mostly positive review scale on Steam. And if you are interested in it and you are aware of the content warning, I'd say check it out, see what you think.
Yeah, I still intend to at least see it for myself at some point, someday.
Yeah, I would be curious to hear your thoughts for sure. So those are our secret games, ILA, A Frosty Glide, and Copycat. Let's move on to our discussion with Flora Merigold, this episode's special guest. Our guest today wasn't originally planned, but as fate would have it, we became overnight fans. Of her thoughts and words and really big mind, her podcasts and shows should not be left behind. It's the Epilogue Gamer, the narrative praiser. Coming into the fold is Flora Merigold. How's it going?
That's the most grandiose introduction I've ever received, and I'm incredibly honored. Thanks for having me, and I might enshrine that up like underneath my family crest in my living room.
Well, thank you for being here, Flora. It's great to have you on Underplayed. We didn't originally plan to have you on this season, but as luck would have it, as fate would have it, this is happening now. So, Flora, we want to get to know you a little bit in this interview section. Let's talk about your gaming tastes and where they come from.
Okay, so my gaming tastes are relatively counterintuitive if you know anything about me, as far as like what I tend to write about, what I tend to talk about on my shows, etc. I grew up playing games that I wouldn't touch now. Like I'm talking about sports games primarily, like Madden, NFL, or NCAA football. My dad was a sports coach, so that's something that sort of was one of the only ways we could bond over video games. Call of Duty shooters. I was in a competitive Call of Duty league throughout high school. Don't know why, but like 8 of my close friends all had PlayStation 3s, and we called ourselves the Knights of Columbus, and we would like set up like competitive leaderboards online and like compete against people on various Friday nights. And we would all bring our TVs and PS3s over and host like LAN parties. It was ridiculous, but you wouldn't catch me dead doing any of that now. I mean, there were some good games in my childhood. I say good by my current standards, like Pokemon Crystal or Jak and Daxter, SSX Tricky. Those are some like classic favorites of mine that I think still do hold up. But my taste in gaming didn't really develop until college, where I had a friend who was loaning me these games, including his physical systems, things like Persona 3 or Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time or The Last Guardian, which was like the big final one for me that like tipped me over the edge. The Last Guardian is made by the same people who did Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, so it's got that same sort of Fumito Ueda design to it. And The Last Guardian is the first video game that I credit with making me cry. I sort of had emotional responses to books and movies before, and of course music. But for a video game to make me take it that seriously and have that degree of emotional depth and impact, it changed my perspective on what video games are, what they could be, and also just my relationship to them. The games I've been chasing ever since have been games that have some sort of emotional impact to them, and those are still my favorite games to this day.
We definitely look for those experiences that are emotional or give us a narrative journey that sticks with us. And sometimes a game doesn't need to be the most complex to stick with us. We have a featured game today, Flower, that you can kind of read into. You can attribute your own story there to what's going on. But we look for those all the time. And some of our most meaningful gaming experiences come from those narrative experiences.
So if you could, from there, describe the journey you've taken with Epilogue Gaming and maybe how that those gaming tastes influence that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, it's actually a really natural feeding point in terms of like the chronology of Flora to move from The Last Guardian to Epilogue, because I was working with someone at my university. We were both tutors and graduate assistants in the writing center. My friend's name is Ben, and he was a Twitch streamer. I didn't really understand what Twitch streaming was at that time. Like I knew of it, but I didn't really have a firm understanding of why people watched other people play video games. Like, why wouldn't you just play the game yourself? My friend told me that he was making a primary amount of his income, and we have the same job, just to reiterate that, off of Twitch.
Wow.
And I was like, what? So I started popping into his streams after I would get out of class at like 9 p.m. I'd go home, grab some food, open up my computer, and there he was with this like community of people watching him play like Mario Kart or something. And I got very invested. And so we started talking about games that like meant things to us. I realized that there was a really deep interest there. And this is around the time I played Final Fantasy X for the first time, a game that I was very frustrated where like the story was amazing, but the gameplay was boring. And like this back and forth sort of energy, I was like, what is this frustration? Turns out it had to do with ludonarrative and this idea of how video games tell stories. So we started conversing. I had a third friend named Preston. We formed a website called Epilogue. And from there, we've just been writing articles, making podcasts. We do video content now, charity marathons. We have merchandise, like all sorts of crazy things. It's just exploded over time. But we've been working on that since the end of 2017 quietly. And then we like launched it in the beginning of 2018. So it's almost like 10 years now, which is crazy to think about. But it's been incredibly successful. And our Discord community now has well over 1,000 people that like actively engage every month. So,
yeah, that sounds like a wonderful community. What an amazing thing to build, and what a great milestone to almost hit with the 10 years coming up. That's awesome. Can you tell us more about your role with Epilogue and what you do?
Absolutely. So my role or like title is editor-in-chief. Predominantly, that's what I do. I am the lead writer for the website. I try to put out an article at least every month. I used to kind of do every 10 days. That was my original personal role. But as you can imagine, after about 150 articles every 10 days, you run out of games to talk about pretty quickly. You got to be playing a lot. But I also edit any of the articles that make it to the front page. They go through my inbox. I give feedback. I curate screenshots for the articles, get them lined up on the website and publish them. That's predominantly what I do. I've been a part of the stream team that we have. We have like an official partnership team on Twitch that it like has to do with like how many viewers and whatever, like the frequency with which you stream. I don't handle any of that personally. My lead is the written content, but I've also done in the past, in addition to the Twitch streaming, some podcast material, but I save that for the Left Behind Game Club a little more now. That's sort of my focus if I'm gonna do audio oriented content.
Cool. Well, that actually leads us into our next question. We were going to ask you about Left Behind, but if you want to talk about your general podcast presence too, like how you show up elsewhere, how do you use your voice with podcasting?
I think that's a really fun question. I appreciate that, and I have to think about it for a moment, but it brings my mind back to when I used to do a philosophy-oriented podcast, the first couple of years that I did anything audio outside of music. And that was like 2016 to 2018. I did a show called Need for Nuance. There's only 3 episodes that are still up on SoundCloud, but like the rest got nuked when you stop paying for your podcast to be like platformed places. They're gone forever unless someone saved them. But we would talk about various topics, my friend and I, that we were reading in college. I have 4 college degrees, for better or for worse, one of which is philosophy, and that was like my baby. And so we would sit there and go over texts, some of which I probably shouldn't name on a clean audio feed like this, but others that are, provocative, let's say. And we would have these like 3-hour-long conversations analyzing these papers that slowly translated to when I started doing all this video game content, doing, let's say, philosophy, but about the video games that told their stories really well. So we picked Journey and Shadow of the Colossus and Grease and like other games that I like, The Walking Dead, Telltale's The Walking Dead, like games that like really had an impact on us as we played them for the first time. And that eventually translated to me being a fan of the Left Behind Game Club, because I was looking for episodes to research who has already covered this game that we're about to record. Like, we're going to do a Dark Souls episode. Who's already talked about this? Oh, Left Behind Game Club. I actually might be mistaken. I don't think they've covered Dark Souls now that I say that. So listeners, I apologize. But I actually like really became a fan of the show. And then we became friends on Twitter because I would just send them like positive things about their episodes. Long story short, ended up meeting Jacob and eventually Katie and Travis, who also got brought on around the same time as me. And I showed up as a guest a few times. We had great energy. And after hanging out at PAX, at least once, it might have even been before PAX, to be honest, they extended like a formal invite for me to be one of the permanent hosts. And so whenever there's a game on the menu that we want to cover that sounds like it would be up my alley, I try to hop on that. I try to stay away from games that are not my alley because I don't like disparaging games. That's not fun for me to be a hater. Like, that's just, I don't know about you all, but when I have strong negative thoughts about something, I rarely want to talk about it. An exception being our mutual friend, Dave Jackson. The first appearance I made on his show was The Last of Us Part 2. I came in wanting to swing at that game. I was so mad at that game. And he left me feeling a little more redemptive about it. So that's a fun conversation if anyone wants
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to
chase that down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We do struggle with the criticizing games that we don't agree with.
Yeah. It's hard to, like, I think of the Into the Breach episode, which is probably my lowest score I've ever given a game.
Whoa.
But it's just, I just didn't want to do that episode essentially when it came down to it.
I'm curious, having not listened to it, and feel free to, trim this out if you want, but like, what was your gripe with that game? Because I have relatively strong impressions having not played it myself.
I just thought it was like way too hard, and that it was hard for the sake of being hard, and that I just hate that as a philosophy.
Yeah.
That's totally valid.
And when we share our thoughts, we are looking at it through the lens of ourselves. We're not trying to ever ascribe an objective score out of 10, for instance, like a score that we think a game should be for all people. That's not how we look at it. But still, sometimes we are also acknowledging we're reviewing very tiny games, very low budget games. There's the respect there that we have to remember too.
I don't think there's any value to being like negative for the sake of it. The only times I really personally want to put scores on things, I did like a for fun Yakuza, the complete series review, where I put on a 1 to 5 star scale every single game in the series with like a separate article. Took a very long time, as you can imagine. Yeah. And I now have like definitively told you which ones are the best and which ones are not. But like that even feels a little like removed. Like if it was an indie dev who was making a bunch of things, I would feel like there's way more of an intimate connection with the product being created. And so I would be like a jerk if I was like, you know, saying this is a 1.5 out of 5, you know, that's just unkind and therefore not fun.
Yeah. Well, later today, we will be asking you to give us a score for Flower out of 10, if that's okay with you.
No, we can get there. I'll think of a number.
Okay, perfect. Well, I love what you described there with Left Behind and basically going from like researcher to fan to collaborator. Like that's sometimes the journey we take online. And
absolutely.
I just find that really inspiring.
Well, we're here to talk about Flower today, so obviously we're focusing on indie games. So if you look at indie games from the past few years, what do you notice? Which indies have left an indelible mark on you? I just pulled up your like little tier list thing that everybody's been doing the last couple weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I see a couple familiar ones on there.
Oh, well, actually, what stands out to you? I'll talk about those, and then I have a couple pre-prepared answers for this question.
Well, one of the ones that I think I put in the same spot is Mutazione, which Bopo also recently played.
Love that game.
So that's a standout one for me. 1,000 Times Resist, I think, is on each of our lists, maybe in different spots, but I have it on my list somewhere else, I think.
Yeah, no, both of those games are fantastic for many reasons. I feel like Mutazione was like completely overlooked across the board. Like I didn't ever really see a strong critical reception. It's not poorly reviewed. It has a strong Metacritic score, but I don't know anyone who, when I mention that game, knows what I'm talking about. Like typically it's rare. So it's a really exciting game. It's got some of the best writing, like characterization, amazing vibes. I love gardening and plants and stuff. Hence the flower episode, go figure. But then like 1,000 Times Resist is also one of the most like complex cultural commentaries I've ever seen. It has like these bizarre sci-fi elements that like elevate the story from the mundane to the profound. I absolutely adore both those games for several reasons that I could go on a whole episode about. The things that I had written down in terms of like games over the last like couple years that have really like hit me, I'd be remiss not to mention If Found. It's the game that helped me transition, or at least like develop the courage to want to come out as a trans woman. It's about a trans woman in Ireland in the 90s and sort of her journey towards like finding acceptance within her family and her social circles. Incredible game, blew my mind. I cried on stream. And then at that point, it was like, why are you having such an emotional reaction to this story about a trans woman, Flora? Oh, this might be a sign of something. But anyway, some other more recent games that I've just really loved, and I'll just say these out of order, would be like Hades 2, Don't Stop Girly Pop, Time Flies, Unbeatable, and After Love EP. Those are all fantastic. Nice. Like 10 out of 10s for me, like really, really, well, I don't know if I want to put scores to things like I just mentioned, but
hey, wait a second.
I can't get enough of these games, and I've 100%ed everyone so far on that list that I finished.
Gosh, and that's just, a lot of those games are just from the past year or two, you know, which really shows like every year's got bangers like these. And
indie games for life.
Yes, I had seen If Found on your grid under biggest personal impact. So I'm glad you touched on that too. That's great.
Yeah, it's a game that most people won't know very well. But I will say, you know, this is an audio podcast, but for the benefit of my co-hosts here, I have original art in the background that's framed from the developer team. They liked my article about coming out so much that they mailed me from Ireland their original concept art. And so that's like one of my most prized series of possessions.
Hell yeah, dude.
So yeah, it's really cool.
I love that.
Love that game so much.
Wow. Well, Flora, as you look ahead, what are you looking forward to doing next?
As mentioned, I'm going to try and keep producing articles about video games once a month or so. But the personal things that I'm working on, I have some new music coming out. I just played my first concert in 14 years earlier this January.
Oh, wow.
So I'm working on some new stuff that should be recorded and released to the public at least before the end of the year. I'm not going to put a date on it. I have a new poetry book that's being published by the company Politics and Prose in Washington, D.C. It's going to be available online and in stores for people who want to buy that. I am next year going to publish a game on video games. and I said game, publish a book on video games. It's too much on my mind at once, obviously, creatively. But yeah, that's a little further in the works. I've only written about 250 pages of that. There's quite a bit more that needs to happen before that's done. But yeah, I'm like mostly a writer, so that's predominantly what I do. I write music, I write games. I keep saying that. I write books. And I actually am involved with a video game, but there's no timeline on that, so I can't talk about that, and that explains some of the Freudian slips.
I think that's a good tease.
Yeah.
We'll look out for
that's
more.
going to be like a 2030, like a while from now sort of thing.
Okay.
Like games take a long time to make.
So in 4 or 5 years, we'll see it and we'll be like, oh, that's what Flora was talking about.
I mean, I'm credited in some video games. If you look up like Dan Mullins, the creator of The Hex, I'm in that game.
Really?
But like, I try to keep these things on wraps until they're legally allowed to be talked about.
Okay. Well, I don't know if we'll keep this part in, but on the music, I do see a drum kit, what looks like a drum kit behind you. I see a guitar. Are you doing like everything when it comes to making music?
It's funny you ask, but yes, I do everything from vocals to instrumentation. I write everything top down. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I play guitar, bass, drums, keys. Those are like the predominant things I do. I'm not an amazing singer, but I can make myself sound good with the help of audio engineering. I don't know. I love collaborating with people. That's honestly preferred to me than just writing on my own. But I also am a control freak, and if I don't have complete control over something, then it doesn't feel like mine. So it's like this back and forth. But yeah, I've taught myself how to play every instrument that is relevant to rock.
That's amazing.
Well, good on you. Yeah. I can't even read music. Like, we both love music a lot, but I can't even do anything with it.
And we were in choir.
Yeah, I know.
In high school.
I don't read very much sheet music, if that's what you're referring to. I had to, I took a guitar class in high school, 10th grade. I'd been playing guitar for about 4 years at this point, but I didn't know how to read sheet music. So I would write the tabs that would translate them above each note of like what fret, what string. And I would sit there and cheat as my music instructor came around to evaluate me. He'd be like, all right, open the book up and play Ode to Joy. And then I'd be like, okay, 02, 03. Like I'd just sit there and translate in my brain. It was easier than learning sheet music.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah, that sounds like the next logical step to learning, at least memorizing, it's like how those sheet music works.
Like those pianos that are like color coded and just give you the color on the sheet music. Yeah. That's how I would have to do it.
Hey, you came 100%. Up with a system that works. Mad respect for that. Cool. Well, Flora, you have so many exciting projects and so much great stuff that you do out there. Can you tell listeners where they can find you and your content online?
Thank you. I'm going to make this easy for the listeners and say, if you want to find me anywhere on social media, look up Flora Merigold, and that's Merigold, not to be confused with the flower. I stole it from Tris Merigold of the Witcher series. So it's a Polish spelling. But anyway, like the flower, Flora Merigold. And that's true for Twitch, Twitter, Bluesky, Instagram, you name it. If it exists, that's my handle.
Perfect. That's easy to remember. Well, Flora, thank you for sharing about yourself and all your amazing work. We're not done with you yet. It is time to review the game you chose from our list. Flower. Indeed. It is our featured game. So Flower is an adventure game first released in 2009. We don't often have games released that early featured in this slot, but it was developed by That Game Company and published by SIE for its initial platforms and Annapurna Interactive for PC and iOS. I'm going to steal game synopses from various places. So some of this comes from Steam, some of it comes from the PlayStation Store, I believe. But if you pull these words from these places, you might come up with a synopsis that sounds like, quote, flower lets you take control of the wind as you explore and navigate beautiful, lush environments. Journey through various landscapes at your own pace, interacting with and changing the environment as you go, and find balance and harmony in your surroundings. So Flower opens with shots of a busy and drab city environment. There's a lot of traffic going on. You can tell it's not a very colorful place. And the scene shifts to a grassy countryside where there's a lone petal that emerges from a flower in the ground. And that flower petal can be controlled by the wind. And as it interacts with other blooming flowers, more petals gather into this mass that's flying through the air. And these flower petals have the power to bring color to the world and to even shift objects and to change the environment layout. And your goal as I think you could argue you're controlling the petals. I think you could also argue you're controlling the wind in this game. But your goal is to guide the petals on a journey to the urban cityscape and restore the environment along the way. So very easy setup for this game. I don't know if either of you would add anything to that, but otherwise I would just throw it to Disco to talk about gameplay.
Yeah, equally almost as simple. There's not a ton you actually do, at least as far as inputs. Now, I'll say I haven't played this on PC, and I can't actually even imagine how it controls. But what I will say is that I played this on the PS3 back in the day, soon after it came out. And on PS3, you make use of the 6-axis motion controls in the DualShock 3. And that is how you control the game. You tilt your controller to control the direction of the wind. So this might be the most unique game input that we've reviewed on the show. The only other thing you can do as far as input is press the cross button to boost your speed. Now, I'll say this time I played it on PS4, and I kind of half expected the game to be updated to include twin stick controls, because you could very easily control a game like this with twin sticks, but that's not the case. When you're using your DualShock 4, and even if you're using a DualSense on the PS5, it's still using the same motion controls. So I thought it would be updated because I wasn't even sure that those motion controls existed in these more modern controllers. But also, while that was a standout and revolutionary way to control a game at the time, to me, it kind of feels akin to like early 3D games with tank controls. So that's not to say it won't be an interesting experience for someone playing a motion control game for the first time, but it's not really the novel experience it once was. So that's why I expected it to be a little bit different. But if you're playing this on PC without a controller, like, how does this work? Like, when I look online on Steam briefly, it seems like the answer is not well, but that might be more about the performance of the game, which apparently doesn't go very well on PC. But that's all I've got. You tilt your controller and you press the cross button.
Yeah. Well, you took some of the words out of my mouth, because I was going to mention this originally released with the 6-axis motion controls in 2009 on the PS3. So that was a main feature. That was a newer thing back then. More than 4 years later, it came to PlayStation Vita and PS4. I think on the same day, or the same month at least. And that port to PS4 was with support by Blue Point Games. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Yeah. God.
So that was like one of
soon.
their earlier projects, at least for PlayStation. And it then came to iOS in 2017 and PC in 2019. So here's an example where a game released on consoles, even a handheld, and mobile before coming to PC. That's very unusual. Where it comes to, it came to PC 10 years after releasing on the PlayStation 3. Flower is a spiritual successor to the game Flow, also from that game company, which DiscoCola has talked about on our show before.
Yes.
You've played quite a bit of Flow.
I have.
And you enjoy it.
Yeah, I like it as much as Flower.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And I've given Flow a shot, but I haven't finished it. I haven't gotten as far as you. And then Flower was nominated for and won numerous indie, casual, and artistic achievement awards around the time when it was released too. So, Flora, here's my understanding of how we got connected to you for this episode. we posted our season announcement for our 10 episodes of this season. And sometimes when you post things like that, your friends and frequent collaborators out there will repost your stuff. And it was a Dave Jackson who reposted or added our post to a story. And you reacted to Dave's reposting or story about our schedule with an emoji, maybe of like eyeballs looking to the side with the word flower, like flower, eyes to the side. And then that prompted Dave to reach out to me and be like, hey, I think Flora wants to be a guest or something like that. He's the great connector, this Dave Jackson. Is that how you understand how this happened?
That completely tracks, and I shouldn't be totally surprised that Dave is the functional wedge here that is like, he's connecting everybody behind my back. Dropping eyeball emojis indicates excitement. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean implicitly, oh, I'd love to be a guest on the episode of a friend's podcast. But he interpreted some additional meaning out of those eyes. He was right, of course. But it's kind of funny that like some small thing like that can expand into an actual like, hey, I'm here. I'm behind the microphone now. So.
Actually, I think just to be accurate for Dave's sake, I think it was more like, hey, just so you know, Flora gave this reaction. Like, Flora might be a really good guest. I've had Flora on my show. She's really smart and like knows her stuff and is really cool. And I was like, okay, I'm already in. So what he said about you, I didn't know you at the time. What he said about you sold me.
That's incredibly kind and characteristically so, because Dave is an incredible podcast host, as we probably all know. But if listeners have not given his show a chance, Tales from the Backlog is fantastic.
Yes. And Dave was on our show earlier this season talking about Hollow Knight Silksong, which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's like one of my most hated games right now. So I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah. Actually, at PAX, Flora, you and I talked a little bit about the Hollow Knight games. And
those games make me mad.
I totally get where you're coming from. Well, let's refocus on Flower to relax ourselves then.
Yeah, agreed.
What about Flower stands out to you enough to reply to Dave Jackson's repost of our schedule with an eye emoji, Flora?
I think the most obvious starting point for that answer involves the relationship I have to Genova Chen's work, specifically with Journey being the major impactful game. If anyone listening has not played Journey but has played Flower, that would be astonishing to me. Because Journey has so much more notable impact as far as the games as art conversation goes. It's almost a cliche at this point to mention Journey in conversations about whether games are art. Epilogue Gaming, we made a whole series of videos on YouTube, including one on Journey, to answer that question. Like, we use Journey as a primary example because it's so successful at telling a story without words. And I think for some people that's a little bit shocking. Like, how can you tell a story without using language? And there is like a little bit of glyphic language in the game and things like that. But Flower is sort of like a natural step along the evolution towards what is the masterpiece of Journey. I don't think Flower is a masterpiece per se. I do think it's incredibly successful at what it wants to focus on, showcase, and do as a gameplay. Like y'all mentioned the motion controls through like the 6-axis, like PS3 control. I played this on PC. I'm the weirdo. I kept my mouth shut during that part of the conversation, but I did not experience this on native hardware, and so motion controls were not a part of my experience. I was playing with analog sticks. And it still made its impact on me because it wasn't really about the controls. That was just a cool experimental element of how it helped facilitate its storytelling. I think we'll get a little deeper into this in a moment, so I don't want to say too much now. But Flower, if I had to really boil it down, is like an environmentalist like metaphor. And I think that spoke to me really highly at the time, because when I played Flower, like roughly the area of time was around when I was studying environmental ethics and how to apply those in the real world through like public policy and things like that. And it just felt like a really apt metaphor for the things that I was already caring about, like in terms of school. So it hit me at that time in my life and meant a lot to me because of that. I still think it holds up in a lot of ways. It's just an incredibly peaceful game, and there's some specifics that I'll nail down in a moment as we speak a little further about it.
Yeah, I think that's undeniable that as you're playing Flower, there's something of a contrast. I don't know if it's like an urban environment versus more of a pastoral environment. Like it's not that you're necessarily defeating something or that there's a conflict. But yeah, there's something you can read into there for you personally. And I think that's very special. Do you have any other thoughts about Flower, positive, negative, or neutral, before we ask you for a score, which I know isn't always your first thing that you want to do when you're talking about games?
So I put 4 bullet points down, and I'll just riff off those bullet points and see where that takes me.
Sure.
So I titled this series of bullet points, Why Flower is Sentimental to Me. So the first point that I just hinted at is the obvious implicit environmental symbolism, which is like promoting the idea that a flower wilting in a pot in the middle of a smog-ridden city at the beginning, like that's like your main menu in the game. It sort of like evokes the idea that the flower itself is dreaming of like these luscious fields in which merely being a petal in the breeze allows you to like reconnect with your brethren and like instill a chance for the landscape to actually blossom, like literally. And as you progress through the game, the landscape gets uglier as more things develop, and it just becomes this like absolute depression scape where I think it sort of is an implicit commentary on like industrialism and sort of like neo-modernism, for lack of a better term. Like it's mimicking the slow technological progress that happened over the last couple centuries in the pursuit of developing human civilization. But like, what are we leaving that behind? With that progression, the flower petals become these like, as we notice through the story as it trickles along, they become more diverse. They're like singular colors at first. They become more like rainbow tuned throughout the game. I don't know what that means, but it feels very intentional in terms of like the metaphorical commentary happening. There's also this commentary through the music in the game. Like it's a combination of music with environmental restoration. As you fix the environments through the game, like you're the wind or the petals or whatever you want to say, like going through all these flowers and making places bloom again, it adds this sort of reward or allure, for lack of a better term, to the idea of successfully restoring the environment's beauty. So like, since the result of the level is a fundamentally more beautiful place, it makes sense for music, like emotional triggers, to cue and pair alongside of those moments. And like, even later in the game, once the landscapes get corrupted, you know, like there's like this bent metal, this electricity, this dark, stormy color, like the music even adds like thunderstorms, like quite literally underneath it all. They like take over. There's literally like gusts of thunder and pouring rain, wind blowing through. It feels scarier and more tense as you work through the quote unquote advancement of technology. And then just the last thing, my final bullet point is like, this is simple as all belief, but I was a orchid breeder for 5 years. I'm a huge fan of plants. I did landscape design. I've cared for plants of all ilks all over the decades. And this game feels like an extension of that interest and that hobby that has brought me like joy and solace and meaning in really difficult periods of my life. Like in the deepest depression I ever had in my life, it was like early in college for me. One of the things that helped me out of it was taking care of other things like my cats or my plants or whatever. And this game sort of represents like a metaphor of like getting out of depression. And it reminds me of that relationship that plants provided me on my way out of that. I mean, I still struggle with depression, of course, but like the lowest point in my life that I can really think of, one of the things that I really credit with aiding me out was caring for plants. And so this game just represents that to me uniquely. And even though there's not a character that you're taking care of, there's a landscape, and that sort of becomes a character. And sometimes giving back to something bigger than yourself, like a landscape, even if it's not an immediate thing that can say thank you, is like enough to keep going. And so that's for me, I think, why Flower is ultimately an important game to me, even though it lacks characters that I can name. It's incredibly short. There's no words in it. It's not definitively saying anything. You have to interpret everything. I love that this game allows me to sort of like a canvas project meaning out onto it. And that's why I think it's so successful.
That's amazing. Yeah. One thing that you reminded me of with all of those beautiful bullet points is that we do have that presentation of the flower pots on the windowsill or the desk next to the window.
Yeah.
As we select each one, each flower is sort of projecting its memory like onto the window, right? And to me, this time, I've played this game now probably half a dozen times.
Wow. Okay.
To me, in this replay that I did, those felt like memories. It almost felt like the flowers were channeling like what they've inherited or something from a previous flower, and channeling that to like live this new experience or to remember something, which I thought was really cool.
I think memories is actually more beautiful than what I suggested with the idea of dreams. Like they're like projecting this fantasy out onto the world. It's sort of the same thing, but in reverse, where like they've already genetically at least inherited those memories from their ancestors. Maybe themselves, they were plucked out of the earth and put in a little pot. Who knows? But like, there's something a little more wistful about that. And it speaks, I think, more to the theme of development, like human development that I was just alluding to. So I haven't thought about memories, but I think that actually fits better.
And the petals all traveling together, you know, they can be different colors. The colors change over time. Maybe we get more colors represented as we go throughout. At a certain point, they all sort of feel like a tribe. You know, they feel like they're all part of a family or something.
Yeah.
So there's something familiar there too.
Totally.
So Flora, if you had to give a score for Flower, what would you give out of 10?
I'm going to give you a target range, and I'll try and precisify a number as I talk through it. I feel like this game comfortably should be no lower than a 6, no higher than an 8, aka that makes me want to say a 7. I don't think this is a masterpiece like Journey, you know, like with a reference point like that as a ceiling. It does reveal to me the ways in which this game potentially could do more for me emotionally, or in terms of storytelling. But it's also a really interesting experiment that I think would have been lifted even easier out of the 6 range if I had played with the motion controls that y'all mentioned. I think that could have been a really cool gimmick that would have made me appreciate this game a degree more. I think games that focus on quote unquote the environment are important. I'm thinking of Abzu as a reference point as well. Often brought about in these conversations around these like atmospheric environmental exploration games like Journey, Flower, or in this case, Abzu. I think both Abzu and Journey do it better. So it's hard for me to say definitively why I'm docking the points, other than there are things that have done the same exact style and genre presentation that I think are more successful. And therefore, proportionally, my score feels lower than I want it to be, because I have, as I mentioned, the emotional connection to this game that feels unique to me. I'm inclined to say games like that are like masterpieces or whatever. But there's something kind of fun about the fact that Flower is almost esoteric. It's like a game that people who have played Journey probably have not played. And so, like, yeah, I feel like this sort of sense of like elitism, for lack of a better term, where I'm like, yeah, I've done the homework on Genova Chen's work. Like, yeah, I've gone back and played the old hits. I don't think I've played Flow, though, so y'all got one up on me. I think that's kind of the long and short of my emotions about this game and my feelings about it overall, because while I think this game is great, I don't think this is a game that I would play a half dozen times like you, Bo. That's a lot.
Since 2009. Since 2009,
yes!
You know, on and off every few years, right?
And I'm going to double check real quick. I think I played this for the very first time in like 2018.
Okay.
Like I was a late bloomer again. Pardon the pun. But I played 98 minutes of this game. So like you've really owned this in a way that I have not. But I still think it made an outsized impact to the amount of time that it took to complete. So I would recommend this to anybody. I think 7 out of 10 feels appropriate for me.
Okay, cool. You can do 0.5s too if you want.
I was doing 3.5 in my head originally. So once I saw it scaled up to 10, I was like,
oh,
all right,
perfect.
I know how doubles work.
Nice. Just double it. Perfect. 7 out of 10 for Floor. All right, DiscoCola. I know you've played Flower at least twice.
It has been at least twice.
I
don't think it's been half a dozen times, but enough to like get in the platinum on PS3. So that requires a few times.
Wow. Yeah.
And then like 1.5 times just this time around. So I don't have this separated into likes and dislikes like I usually do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because this game's a little bit of a unique beast, and I have a unique history with it. We were talking earlier about that tier list thing that's been going around on the socials, and one of the categories is biggest personal impact. I really struggled with that one because there's like 3 games all around the same time that I could have picked. Ultimately, I put Limbo in that space because of how it shifted me into indie games. But like I was thinking about Portal 2 and how that shifted me away from playing just Mega Man and PS1 platformers, or, you know, Flower could just as easily have been in that place for me because for me, this is the very first game that I played where the idea of video games are art exists. So you mentioned that with Journey, but for me, I was already playing Flower multiple times before Journey even came out, and I was like, oh, this is art. And when I think of telling people like, you know, video games are art, one of the first games I think of is Flower. And in part, that's because of like literally it's very artistic and kind of painterly, but it's also chronologically the first one that I think of because it's the first one that I played that's like that. So I do have like a strong foundational love for this game. And it came about at the same time as Limbo, where I'm starting to fall in love with the concept of an indie game, and I don't even realize that's happening to me. So my history is going to play a little bit of a part in it, but I also like don't crave the actual act of playing it most of the time. I haven't gone back to it a bunch of times. After I got that platinum, I was like, okay, my PS3 sounds like a jet engine. You know, I don't actually enjoy the motion controls that much. And so it's something that I put down pretty much for a long time. And then, you know, moved on to trying to platinum Journey, which I still haven't done yet. But yeah, it's a bit of a complicated beast because now I'm playing it again and I have this perfect opportunity. Flora, I'll say this, I wanted to mention it earlier. Whenever Bo and I are reviewing a game that we've both played and played a lot and played way far in our past, it can be easy to dread those episodes because it's like, well, what do we even talk about in the episode? Because we've already, you know, experienced this game to its fullest 20 years ago. So it always helps to have a guest on when we're reviewing these older games that we've consumed a lot. So not only is it helpful to have a guest on, but I also have children that are starting to like grasp the concept of playing games and stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect. My oldest kid is 6. They can totally grasp motion controls, I'm sure, and they would love a Flower game. Why not? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to share this artful experience with my kid. But as it turns out, motion controls are not, you know, my kid was struggling just as much with the motion controls as I do sometimes playing this, maybe even to a greater extent, actually. And so what it comes down to is that while revolutionary and my first experience with a game that could be considered art, playing it in 2026, you know, it's not that novel experience that I had back in 2009, 2010. And I can't get that back. I still love the fields of flowers and bringing life back to all this, you know, all these fields, even the city. Like I look around our city and I'm noticing like spaces that used to just have a bunch of trees in them and they're being bulldozed. And it's like, I know that that's just city life, but like just the place by your old house is just a dirt patch now. And it's
depressing. And it happened overnight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't notice that the trees were there when they were there, but now that they're gone.
I know. I actually driving by the first time, this was just a few months ago. My new place I live in now is still along that same street. And I'm driving by and I'm like, I'm not on the right street. And it's just all this dirt. And then I think, oh, they took away whatever was here. What was here? Oh, it's a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
Now it's nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's happening in a bunch of spots right now in our city. And it's it makes me depressed. I've been described on this podcast 1 or 2 times as like anti-infrastructure, and that's true to a point. I would just rather get everything back to greenery, but I also understand that that's not reality. But, you know, something that I picked up when I played this game again this time is that this game is not as anti-infrastructure as I remember. Like, I kind of remember just sort of like being, it's all about the open fields and the plant life and, you know, heck, the city. But that's not the case. You're actually bringing life to the city.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about the opportunities that our city takes to beautify the city, so to speak. And sometimes that means planting trees and a lot of native plants and a lot of, you know, diverse plants. But depending on who's saying beautify the city, that also means leveling everything and making lush green lawns. And so I took that message and applied it to Flower and how it's about a balance in city life. And it's not about being anti-infrastructure. And I felt like I grew a little bit playing it this time around because I need to get over myself a little bit and just not be so anti-infrastructure all the time. But anyways, that's all of my non-likes and non-dislikes. Like I said, this is the first game I think of when I think of games as art, but it's not the one I'm excited to recommend in 2026. Even on the environmental level, there are other games that tell environmental stories better. Abzu is one of them that you mentioned. And so, I don't know. I still consider Flower to be a revolutionary game, and I've mentioned that on the podcast before. And while I don't enjoy controlling it in the year 2026, I did still have a lot of fun making sure every flower blooms. And I'm still going to try to get my kids to understand tilting instead of turning the controller. But we'll see if we get there. So for me, this is an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay, that makes sense. So after probably half a dozen different playthroughs since 2009, I think Flower still holds up. This is 17 years later. It's crazy. But I think this is really fun. I think this is a game you can show to someone and go like, hey, here's an artful experience. Someone who hasn't seen Flower before, I think in 2026 and beyond can have a great time with it. I think the gathering of petals into a giant mass is one of my favorite feelings in this game. Going from one petal to eventually having a handful, and then you just get the sense that you have this long stream of petals and you stop being able to see all the new ones because you're picking up hundreds of petals. You get the idea that there is an army of petals behind you. And I think that's a really fun feeling, especially when you're going fast and they're all keeping up with you. The music and the direct impact you have on the soundscape as you're flying through is really powerful too. You'll be zooming along a line of flowers, and every time you're picking up a petal, that's a note you're adding into things. And sometimes it sounds like it's a little bit mismatched with the music, but that's okay because it's still like harmoniously fitting. It's still in the right key or whatever. I'm not a big music person. I don't know all the right terms. I'm sorry.
Don't at me.
But don't at me. But it just sounds really pleasant. Also, in the soundscape, we have sound effects, and a lot of sound effects were standing out to me this time, like the wind. When we get into the darker sections and we have to turn on those lanterns, and those lanterns do the click, 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 click. It's just this really nice rhythmic change that we don't get in the previous 3 or 4 levels. So every level is finding new ways to do things visually and auditorily. The art direction and fidelity, I think, is just really great. Even when things don't make a lot of sense, you get to the point in this game where you're seeing a street light just in the middle of a field by itself. And that image doesn't make a lot of sense, but Flower gets us there. There's something it does to make the out of the ordinary feel right at home. I think the grass blowing in the wind looks great. The brightness of the sun and the triumphant return of light by the end is really great too. So also I love the feeling of flying high above the ground. You can, if you're playing with the motion controls on like PS4, you're holding in a button and you're moving the controller around. If you just tilt your controller straight up, you can just zoom really high up and it just feels like you have this mastery over this aerial space. And I liken that feeling to what I've felt in Dreams going back to the idea of dreams,
Ooh.
where you feel like you're flying. It's only happened a couple times in my life, but I remember dreams where I felt like I could fly. And it feels like when you go as high up as you can with the flower petals in this game, just that freedom. I do have dislikes for flower. I think turning on a dime is very hard to do. I think the motion controls allow you a lot of like interesting freedom. But at a certain point, now you can see me on the video call. Like I know, Flora, you didn't play with the motion controls, but you're kind of holding the controller doing this. Like you're just moving it side to side a lot. And you want to hold the controller in front of you to have more precise
Accurate,
movement, right? And you're doing that a lot. And even then, even when you're going in a straight line, picking up a line of flower petals, there are times where you zoom right past one, you miss one, and it feels like maybe you should have picked it up.
Yeah.
And then you want to quickly turn around sometimes to pick it up because maybe you need all these flower petals to unlock the path to the next place. So you're going to have to pick it up. You do your best to do a sharp turn. And you do that thing where you turn as sharp as you can, but you end up overshooting the pedal and you're just doing a circle around the pedal. And then you have to level yourself out and then just fly away and do a big arc and come back. Yeah. And so that really ruins momentum sometimes. And I just think it could have been fixed if the detection for the pedals was a little bit more forgiving as I'm flying through. I wish the game just knew to give me that pedal that I was close enough to get. Just give it to me. I know it might sound like a minor complaint, but that's something that just happens.
But it happens a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
You can go slower, though. You don't always want to go slower, but to the game's credit, it gives you the option to slow things down and be really precise, but you're losing a lot of momentum in the game at that point. I think the level selection with using the motion controls is clunky on that menu screen with the window, with all the pots. I like the idea of navigating to a pot to select it. For me, that just wasn't working. I'd try to move the controller. I wasn't able to select the pot I wanted for a few seconds. It just really slowed things down. Another nitpicky, kind of pedantic thing is I don't like when games use their own titles and logos on like the menus and where you see them often in the UI of the world. This game uses the flower logo when you select a level. And it also shows up when you finish a level and it does that really nice montage of landscapes of the level you just played. It'll just pop, like flower TM in the corner.
It looks like a watermark, yeah.
And every time it just rips me out a little bit. I know what game I'm playing. I don't need the reminder in the corner. It is the tiniest little complaint, but it was sticking out to me. These are the kinds of complaints you have when you play it 6 times, though. So overall, I think Flower's gorgeous. I think it's a must-play game. It doesn't have much of a story on the surface, but you can really attribute your own lived experience to it and read things from it based on what you've experienced. Flower calms me. It eases my mind. Its influence feels felt all these years later in so many games we play. It paved the way for some of my favorite indies of all time. I was going to stick with a score I might have given this, 10 years ago, which would be a 9 out of 10. I think after playing it again and hearing both of your thoughts about it, I'm going to be at an 8.5 out of 10 for me.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's 2 8.5s versus my 7?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'm the hater on the podcast. Let's go.
Flora canonically hates Flower, actually.
I was named after the game.
So I do want to talk about controls and what might differ between the versions we played. Flora, you said you played on PC. Neither of us on this end have played it on PC. What is that like?
I personally don't have strong impressions of it being like difficult to manage. If it was clunky, I think I would have stronger opinions to share here in this portion of the discussion. But compared to y'all's experience with the actual motion controls and how imprecise that could be, and like you mentioned, how punishing it can be when you like slightly miss something and have to double back. I don't think I had a particularly difficult time with the controls, or at least there's no like sharp memory poking out here. It did take me, as mentioned, close to 100 minutes to finish the game, so I think that's a little longer than average. Maybe that has to do with the controls. I'm not sure. But I don't really have a lot of insight to add to that other than it felt well implemented. Like, it felt like a decent port. There were no performance issues with the PC version, particularly in terms of like rendering frame rate, graphical fidelity, color balance, things like that. But the physical interaction of I played with the DualShock 4. I did not have access to motion controls through the port. Maybe there is a way to set that up, but I just played with the analog sticks, and that was sufficient.
Okay, that sounds like something.
Wish I had more of a racy take, but
no, that's fine. It sounds like what Disco was wishing for.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping that would at least be like they re-released Croc Legend of the Gobos within the last year or two, and I believe they left the old tank controls in, but then they also added a button layout that is not
the way to
garbage.
do it. That's the way to do it.
That's what I think too. I want the twin stick option so that I can experience what might be the better way to play the game.
Well, and then I know you can play the game on iOS, so I could play it on my phone, I guess. I don't know what that entails.
Yeah, how'd that work? I bet there are, because like phones track all of your like movements,
True,
right?
but
I was wondering, I bet that probably does have motion controls. Like it picks up when I walk.
And I bet I have to hold a finger down on my screen, like you have to do with the controller on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Like on PlayStation, you have to, I think it allows you to press and hold any button.
Oh, is that right?
I was using cross on PlayStation, which is very natural, right? So I stuck with that for a while. But then I thought, what does it feel like to just hold down R2 while we fly? And that felt pretty nice too. So I'm guessing just to start the movement, you do need to tell the game, I want to start moving. And you have to probably hold a thumb down on the screen if I had to guess.
That'd be my guess.
I could be completely wrong, though.
So, Flora, was that the case for you as far as the boost button goes? Just any button on the controller?
Yeah, I want to say I also used the cross button. I again, with the PlayStation controller, didn't feel like any like main jumps were made in terms of remapping the controller. So yeah, if memory serves, I think it was just the cross button.
They could have done like a twin stick thing, which would have been wild.
Yeah.
Like instead of holding down the cross button.
Well, I feel like R2 would make the most sense personally in terms of like that's like acceleration in a lot of games. And so like that would sort of intuitively come to mind like as like, okay, when I want to move this wind, I'm going to use the acceleration button that is typically mapped, but face buttons are fine too. I don't know.
So how do we find ourselves playing Flower? Are you slow and methodical, or are you fast and free, or somewhere in between?
I feel like my play style is, I'm inevitably somewhere in between. I'm not sitting there trying to speed run this game. I'm trying to like embrace what it has to offer. I also feel like the way this game is designed sort of like puts you in little like arenas, for lack of a better term, where you kind of get funneled from arena to arena, and like there's not a lot of exploratory room. You're not just like going out and discovering new species over in the corner over the side of the mountain. So to say that I'm like methodical or fast feels like equally sort of wrong. I feel like I'm exploring what the level has to offer and then moving on without too much of the feeling of needing to look back. If this game felt like it had more collectibles or things like that, maybe I would have played it differently.
I do know the game has secret flowers you can bloom.
Yes.
3 per level.
Yes.
I was not as methodical with those, but that would have been cool to collect.
I remember back in the day, I was slow and methodical because I was aware those were in the game because of the trophies. The trophies were telling you like bloom all the secret flowers or something.
Yeah.
And so I was taking my time back in the day. I wasn't doing that this time. In fact, I don't think I could remember any of the secret flower locations. Or I might have an image of one in my mind, but I couldn't remember where in the level is it. So I went fast and free this time. And I feel like I got the game done in less than an hour.
Oh, wow.
I think I just zoomed through it. And that gives you a new level of, I guess like kineticism and freedom that I don't think I ever had before. So I think both ways are valid.
Yeah, for me, I had 2 separate experiences this time around. for my solo experience, I wanted to go fast and free and ignore everything and just get to the end because, deadlines, but found myself unable to control myself and just trying to make sure every flower blooms and finding every secret flower. But then when I was playing with my kid, I tried to be hands off as much as I could. But like I mentioned, they were struggling with tilting the controller instead of like rotating it. And I found myself after they pointed it out, just like sighing and being like, you're turning again. And so I was like trying to be this hands-off person to give my kid this like stress-free, cool, artful experience. And I didn't do that. And that sucks. And so I kind of resented that I was playing it on a deadline at that point. And I apologized to my kid the next day. I was like, hey, I'm sorry I was such a jerk when you were trying to play Flower. And I hope they pick it up again, but we haven't revisited it yet.
I do think talking about this game in terms of deadlines is a useful way to reflect on it, because this is a game that resists the idea of like a deadline. Like, it doesn't rush you towards completion in any meaningful sense. Like, it's very much like you sort of coast through the game almost in the way that the petals are being like brushed about by the wind. And I think that that's actually a design strength of this game that we haven't really mentioned yet, but I wanted to highlight that since you just mentioned having a sort of implied deadline maybe like harshened your experience with it a little more in a way that it wouldn't have if you were able to play a little more aimlessly.
Yeah, and I don't think there are any fail states. I remember there are surfaces that are electrified that can shock you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
if
but
you bump into them.
I don't think it ends your game.
I don't think it restarts the level or anything like that. So that's reinforcing the go at your own pace feel.
And to drive that point home even more, there is a trophy on the list for coming back after not playing for a week.
Oh, what? Oh, that's beautiful.
I love that.
I love trophies like that.
Yeah. And then the Stanley Parable has one, come back after 10 years.
I cheated that one.
Yeah.
Some of us have changed our computer clocks.
Yeah. But I think they're looking at maybe games like Flower that set that precedent as an idea for games. And that's where I'm curious about the legacy of Flower, actually. 17 years later, what do we think the legacy of Flower is? And how has it shaped our tastes or shaped the trajectory of indie games?
I feel like it has sort of been usurped by games like Journey and Abzu that I mentioned, games that sort of do the chill, emotional, exploratory, narrative, wordless, sort of like that, everything we've covered. It doesn't mean Flower doesn't have a role anymore, but we are past the era where games were designed with motion controls in mind. That just doesn't really exist. I mean, like Switch counts, I suppose, but name me on one hand how many Switch 2 games have released so far with motion controls. Like, if you can hit two hands, I'll be really impressed. Games typically are not thought of in this way. Like, this feels like an experimental game that maybe didn't necessarily yield a ton of replicators, like iterations of games trying to do the same sort of thing but different themes. But I do think this game was a blueprint for games that would later become impactful, i.e. Journey. The way that Journey's impact has been felt on the medium is not to be overstated. It really depends on where you want to focus, whether you want to point to like the Pathless or some other more modern indie games. But I think everyone sort of universally recognizes that that's a classic. It's a shame that Flower maybe doesn't have the same sort of like name recognition as those other games. I think because it was an earlier project and because it's maybe a little more primitive, it has less staying power in the medium than something more contemporary like a Journey. And that was 2012. It's not even a huge jump in time. I think it's okay for games to maybe not still be thought of like your Super Metroids or your, Mario Worlds or like whatever, like these like Ocarina of Time, these games that are like mainstays, even though they've aged in a lot of weird, clumsy ways, they weren't released by a mainstream developer like Nintendo, and therefore Flower is sort of just quietly in the background as like an experimental PlayStation exclusive. It's so cool that it's on PC, and it routinely goes on sale for like $1 or $2. And I think that there probably are a lot more impacts that Flower has had on the medium that we just won't notice because there's not a lot of iconography in the game. Like it's very just environmentally focused. And so like, how do you take influence from that? Focus on your environment. It's not like you're stealing like a character or an avatar or some sort of like mechanical invention that was unique to this game. This game just did everything it aimed for very well. And I think it still holds up mechanically, personally, despite my lack of motion controls.
Like I said, this is the first thing I think of with games as art. I'm trying to like look at where I think the evolution tree goes from Flower, apart from down the path of Journey. It just it stands in a place and a time, and is like one of the first I've seen telling an environmental story, one of the first I've seen telling an artful story. And it just has always stuck with me in that sense. Not to mention, you know, it just came out at the right time where indie games are changing me. So that's its legacy for me. But as far as like legacy in the greater world, when people talk about Journey but don't know about Flower, kind of feels the same to me as when people talk about Inside but don't know about Limbo. Like for me, that's the same feeling.
Yeah. There were two shifts in my brain after playing Flower back in the day on the PS3. So this is, you know, circa 2009. It's that, we can control something, like our protagonist can be something that's a little hard to describe or something that maybe doesn't have a name or a face. We are not necessarily playing a bipedal character that jumps on platforms or shooting a gun in the third person, whatever. That was a new thing to my experience at the time. And then also what we talked about a second ago, that there aren't fail states. This game isn't rushing you to the end. We can take our time. I think that was a newer idea to me. Flower, I don't think, was the first game to explore ideas like that. But in the indie space and indie adjacent space, this was the beginning of that era. It was around then, right? So 2007, 2008, 2009, it was right there at the beginning. And I think we do see a lot of experiences today that explore those ideas of like, not a lot of stakes for the player, not a lot of stress, a game that can have a goal, but not stress you out too at the same time.
I think to build on that last point, just something you made me think of is there is a relationship between goals in games and the stress that those goals provoke. And you're correct that this game doesn't necessarily pursue that relationship very strongly. But what I will say is that this game made me feel kind of stressed out despite that. And I mean that in a positive way. It's not like a complaint about the game, but as it becomes more industrialized and dark and thunderstormy and like, you know, like sort of dystopian in some ways, it made me feel something inside of my gut that was not very pleasant. And I think that the fact that the game was wordlessly able to carry me through that arc of like hope and beauty all the way to something more of like despair, it maybe stress is the wrong word to be honest, but like, it wasn't a positive emotion. I respect the game a lot because of how it was able to kind of like weave me through that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before we wrap.
You know, now that you say that, as I got to the darker levels and things were becoming heavier, I did find myself thinking, I kind of miss those first 2 or 3 levels. I kind of wish it was just that.
Mostly, I just dislike the electrified level.
Yeah, I mean,
they're a little scary.
It is scary, and back then I was 17 years younger. I did find it a little bit scarier back then. I hadn't played a game like this. I didn't know what the game was going to give me. I didn't know what it was going to throw at me. Is it going to keep getting darker and darker? And I did miss those earlier levels, but there is that triumphant feeling at the end that I think it really earns, because it goes from peaceful, gentle, not a lot of conflict into the darkness, and it brings us out of that. So I think that's an amazing thing to accomplish in about an hour.
Well said.
Flora, before we head out, would you mind telling listeners again where they can find you and your work online?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. I will say the easiest way to find me is social media through Flora Merigold. And once again, I'll spell it out, Merigold, like Triss Merigold from the Witcher series. But you can also find my work more substantially, longer form things at epiloguegaming.com. That's where I post all my reviews of video games, like in terms of long form written content. Also just discussions of like themes and occasionally like a list or an industry analysis of things like PAX, where Bo and I met this year.
Yeah.
And also my podcast, The Left Behind Game Club. You can find that at leftbehindgame.club online. And I'm not on every episode, but you can look for my name. And if it's a game that I have strong opinions about, you bet I'm going to be on it. So those are the two primary ways to find and engage with my work. So.
Well, Flora, thank you so much for joining us today for the Flower episode and for sharing about your journey with things. We really appreciate it.
I mean, it feels like a pun saying my journey with things. But
we're giving a preview to the next episode because our next episode is going to feature Journey, actually.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Okay. Spoilers, listeners. Spoilers.
But best of luck with everything you have going on now and everything you have coming up. It's a lot of exciting things.
I greatly appreciate it. This has been a fun conversation.
All right. That is our review of Flower. You can play it on PC, PS3, PlayStation Vita, PS4, and iOS. Flora rated it a 7. DiscoCola and I each rated it an 8.5. That's the end of this episode of Underplayed. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed and on podcast platforms. Our music was composed by Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. Check out our show notes where you can find and follow us across social media. Underplayed is on Bluesky, Instagram, and Threads. You can also find my links down below, and I stream a variety of indie games on Twitch.
And I am at DiscoCola in many social media platforms you can access with the browser, including Backloggd, where maybe I'll start a list of games that are art, but that's pretty subjective, and I'm not very good at art, so maybe I'm not the person to do that.
Next time, we'll have 2 more secret games to review. Our special guest, Jacob Price, from the pre-order bonus and So Many Games. And our featured game will be Journey, another adventure game developed by that game company. Until then, everyone, go bonk 'em.